My father, Ivan Christoph Turbarov, was the first to come to this country in 1923, but only after 3 attempts. On his first attempt, his ship was stopped at Ellis Isle overnight and proceeded to New York Harbor in the morning. That was when the quota system was introduced, and since the Greek quota was full, he was sent back. When back home, someone told him he could go to Constantinople, since Macedonia was under Turkish rule for 500 years before the Greeks conquered. He could go there to get a passport, so he did. When he arrived in New York Harbor, they told him it was not valid and sent him back a second time. On the 3rd attempt, he was successful and proceeded to Toronto. He worked for his sponsor, his cousin Eftim Chickles, repaid his debt, and sent for his love, Slavka Shishkova, who had waited for him for 6 years.
My father came over twice because he wanted to find some kind of a business here, to get into some kind of a business before he decided to bring. My sister and my brother were born in the old country. Eugenia Meanchoff was her married name. And my brother, of course, he went under Robert Ugaroff. And they opened up a little restaurant. It was called Rosemarie.
When my grandfather came to Canada, he worked for a company called William Davies Company, and unfortunately he was injured at some point along the way and passed away. So he actually died before I was born. But in his affidavit, he indicated that he was bringing to Canada my father, who was 12 at the time, and my grandmother, who was 35. And they purchased a home in Toronto, in Cabbagetown, at 667 Dundas Street, East. It took them almost a month to get from the village to England, where they finally sailed from, I believe, from Southampton. And the fascinating thing to me was when they were in Paris, when in France, they were on the Orient Express, which I thought was really fascinating. Yeah, my mother came with her brother, and one of them had $80, and I think the other one had $20 or $25, but Canadian, which in those days would be a lot, because you could buy a house in Toronto for $450, $400 in those days, you know, if you can imagine. But also your salary would be, you know, pretty low. But so that was interesting that they came with that. They often also came with, for example, my gold ring. My mother had some gold coins. Well, gold wasn't that expensive in those days, and I don't know where the coins came from, but she had a few, so I had the ring made, which I keep close to my heart and wear all the time.
We came here, my mother, my brother, and I, on October the 12th, 1934. And shortly after I was 10 years old. I was 10 years old in September. And we got into the Macedonian-Bulgarian community in Cabbagetown. I was born on September the 25th, 1924, in Sofia, Bulgaria. 1 year, there was a lot of fighting. I remember 1 year we were walking along the boulevard. It had this boulevard there. That on Sundays you took walks, and it was funny. One side would go that way, the other side would go this way, like this. Anyway, about 4 rows in front of us, we hear this bang, 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 and people started shouting, somebody has shot somebody right in front of us there. And my mother grabbed my hand and says, come on, let's hurry up home. My own personal life did not get in until it was my father. One night he was coming home from work, and there were 2 men behind him, and they were saying to each other, do you think that's the man? The other one says, I don't know whether that's the man. Maybe we better, you know, leave it for another time. here it was, somebody was talking about shooting my father. So my father, well, he knew more about it, but my father came home, and the next day he told my mother that he was leaving. He was coming back to Canada, and he was going to bring us up here. And that's what happened. 2 years later, he came here, and 2 years later saved his money and brought my brother, my mother, and I over here from Bulgaria. I enjoyed my journey. We left by train from Sofia to Paris, and we were on the Orient Express, and it was very interesting because they were like it's a European train, and you had seats on either side. One gentleman there in the next compartment that was a singer, and he played the guitar and sang. So the journey was very interesting. I enjoyed my trip on the ship because there was a Bulgarian fellow there that took me around. I saw the movie there with Alice in Wonderland, and they had the last night, the night before it docked, they had a dance and for a 10-year-old, but I just went to. Anyway, it had a wonderful trip on the ship. It was 5 days, and we docked in Quebec City, and from Quebec City we got the train and we came to the Union Station where my father was waiting for us. It was a lovely trip.